Welcome to Startup Grind. Startup Grind is the world's largest community of startups, founders, innovators, and creators. We host thousands of events, but more than that, Startup Grind is a community. We bring like-minded yet diverse individuals together to connect, to learn, to teach, to help, to build, and to belong. We do this daily through our local events, flagship conferences, startup programs, online media and content, collectively reaching over 3.5 million individual entrepreneurs worldwide. Our community spans over 600 chapters spread across more than 125 countries. Every year, we hold two conferences, one global conference which is held in Silicon Valley and the Europe conference which is held in London. Many have wondered at the strength of our community, but our values, the beliefs that guide the members of our community. We believe in making friends, not contacts. We believe in giving, not taking. We believe in helping others before helping yourself. Now, to start up Grand Asaba. Startup Grand Asaba was born from a desire to connect and organize entrepreneurs in a manner that empowers them to grow, leveraging on the resources available within the local ecosystem and the partnerships available through Startup Grind Global Systems, truly helping the entrepreneur to connect with the relevant resources to build and to scale globally relevant businesses. We are a think tank of homely entrepreneurs adopting technologies to grow our businesses. I am Daniel Uday, and I welcome you all today.
Well, I'm already inspired, Felix. That's really amazing.
Wow. Oh, great. All right. So,
For someone who is about 0.5% away from where he's headed, that's still a long journey.
a very long one, my brother. You know, I have not ceased to be amazed at what the things you said when you came to train us in Asaba here, Felix. You were centered on what tools to adopt in the digital age and how to position ourselves. So then, the topic before us today is future ready. What are the emerging trends that are in entrepreneurship and the workplace? Okay, what are these trends? So, Felix, let's start with you. Could you please just introduce yourself and then give us your thoughts on the topic ahead of us today? Yes, Felix.
Thank you very much to just put me up into this. Let me say this, that first and foremost, we were preparing for the future of work. And how so? Let me start with the idea that first and foremost, we became aware based on the surveys and reports that were being made. Uh, and before now, as at 2018, the last report, we got quadrants, the World Economic Forum Future of Work put Africa in a quadrant, and majority of the African countries were within the quadrant of low exposure and low capacity adaptation. That for us, when thoroughly reviewed, gave us a slight window. It gave us a slight window to catch up with the rest of the world. And of course, one of the strategies that could have helped us catch up with the rest of the world is the fact that we could have leapfrogged the technologies that are already happening in other parts of the world to be able to get Africa at par with most of the world and global economies. Now, but I think what has happened in 2020 was that based on the fact that we had those reports and some of the surveys that have been carried out in Africa on the future of work and how businesses are going to change over time, we were looking at a situation whereby we had a period of 3 to 5 years to be able to move within this spot. But the COVID-19 situation has in some way brought this a little earlier to us. It made it arrive a little earlier, giving us little or no room but to just adapt as fast as we can. And so we're looking at a situation whereby we need to adapt fast in order to have to catch up social economically in Africa. And what this has done for us basically is the fact that it has given us another dimension. If we had a strategy you were working with before now, we need to change the strategy. Let me give you an instance. Hitestroes Technologies has been running trainings physically. So we had physical trainings, all the 5,000 plus we've been doing and all been physical. But we had a set of trainings lined up for this period. And what happened is the fact that since we know we can no longer do them because of the lockdown and all of that, and people need to still learn how to leverage, we have to change our strategy within a period of 1 month. So within 1 month, we've been able to move every of the physical trainings we've had up onto online. So we are leveraging technologies to still reach out to these people with the same quality of training. And let's not forget the fact that we're all learning in the process. So basically what we've been succeeding in doing is to change our strategy from the physical training we usually have to the online training. And some of the trend that has been shaping the business and the global work, let's look at what is happening here, right, within us now. I am in Port Harcourt, Nigeria. Daniel is in Asaba. We have Modou all the way from Gambia, and the rest of the people. What has happened is that we have adopted technology in order to still advance our businesses and work. Yesterday, I was in a marathon training with Facebook and She Lives Africa, and every of those things, I spent almost the entire day doing this training, and it felt as if it was physical, like the values were still being there. So collaboration, change in demography, we're going to be having more of the millennials and the Gen Z, as we call them, coming into the workspace. This is a huge one. It is something we need to really be very, very wary of, not in a bad way, but in such a way that we can leverage that particular demography to the benefit of the business, to the benefit of the work. We need to understand how they work and how they adapt technology. These guys know technology. And let's not also forget that we already have an older generation that have been in the work space that needs to be retooled, reskilled to meet up with it. So we may have a situation whereby we'll have a kind of a reverse mentoring where these new millennials are stepping into the business and probably, I don't know, let me paint this scenario. I'll always make a joke and tell people that my mom is loyal to me, especially when I'm teaching her how to use the phone. Like she will practically, I can send her to go and get me hot water in the fridge, and she will gladly go to the fridge to get me hot water. And so we may have that situation in the workplace going forward where people would have to probably resort to reverse mentoring and all that. So some of the trends that are going to change is that we're going to start having a more globalized workforce. We're going to have people adapting the gig economy much more. Like there's going to be this drive towards work-life fit. So people are going to be considering their work based on how it fits their life and work much more than just the benefits and the wages. So I think Modou and I had an early and a very interesting discussion earlier today. So I think I will leave him to do that.
All right, thank you very much, Felix, for the amazing exposition. You've mentioned adoption and adaptation as one of the key things that can help us become sustainable in these emerging trends. Although, as a startup ecosystem builder, how do you see entrepreneurs adopting and adapting those strategies to build businesses, to scale businesses within the emerging trends in entrepreneurship?
So basically, I would just want to say that, I mean, Felix has actually touched on the base of the millennials and actually how we would be adopting at the moment in terms of, I mean, they always say Silicon Valley is the envy of entrepreneurs. So I think it's a time for, we've seen it in the giants, the Twitter boss announcing that, there would be a switch in terms of his employees working actually from home. That's actually telling you that most of the work that we've been used to, going to the office, having to use, some of the tools that we have is actually changing. Why? Because we have a current situation like Corona telling us that, hey, we should have revisited or we should have actually looked at some of the uncertainties that could hit the world. We've also seen some of the world economic leaders predicted actually, pandemics where we could have actually prepared ourselves. So we've seen emerging trends. So when you look at the topic, we've seen emerging trends in terms of technology, in terms of artificial intelligence being boosted, cybersecurity. We have seen Zoom being hacked a lot. We've seen the upgrade in terms of them ensuring that cybersecurity is, improved. So the idea is now how does entrepreneurs, as an ecosystem builder, how does entrepreneurs now understand pivot themselves during this period, because now all the work is changing.
Yeah.
So the most important word at the moment for most ecosystem builders and for most entrepreneurs is how do we survive. But how do we survive with existing tools and technologies that are actually around? So I think it's more of about resorting to what's doable at the moment. Even though we have existing technologies that has actually cost us for the past few years to adapt, but now I think it's more of about now what suits me best. So this has been the trend, irrespective of whether you are in Nigeria, whether you are in Ghana, whether you're in Gambia. When the AMI released the entrepreneurship survey yesterday, we've seen 85% of African startups being very much uncertain about their profit margins. I mean, this is a global hit. Even venture capitalists are not investing like before.
Wow.
Because most of them are currently studying the global trends. Most of them are protecting their reserves. I think it's more of about how do we get to see the most important technologies like e-commerce, like Zoom, some of the tools that can actually help us leverage on the existing workforce that we have. These are the trends that I think most entrepreneurs are trying to use to get to their customers, because there has been a big margin in terms of how do I get closer to my customers.
Yes.
If I were to host an event like you, I'm sure you must be pretty much sure that if I were to now send a sponsored deck to a potential sponsor, it's completely going to change. How do I get them to sponsor an event right now, knowing pretty much that everybody is hit, so we are more going to be in a situation of having to build a community, having to understand each other. How do we leverage on supporting each other during this time? I think this is more of about the focus, because Silicon Valley has changed and everybody is on the lookout of each other. And how do we build each other at the moment? So this is currently the situation. Yeah.
Wow, amazing insight, Modou. Thank you so much. Amazing insight. All right, now considering the fact that the one of the hallmark of the emerging trend is collaboration in the workplace, and as Felix pointed out, a change in demographics, and then what would you say? Is mentioned something about reverse engineering. Is that applicable when it comes to entrepreneurship, or are we never going to experience something like that, since those that have gone before us are well versed and knowledgeable in the field of engineering, of entrepreneurship, unlike when it comes to the workplace where new technologies has to be adapted, and the younger person is able to easily learn that and then teach it to the others.
Okay, yeah, I'm with you. Okay, what I would say in that this is, okay, look at it from this angle. One of the things that's really changed over time is that before now, we had what we call it, a kind of all of the decision making goes back to the man at the echelon, like the managing administrators. So, but now that has changed drastically onto decision making being done even at the front end, like the front guard. Take the financial institution, for instance, the bank. Let me buttress this with a story. So I walked into a bank and this guy just came in and then started shouting. We didn't know what happened. He just started shouting, like, I am closing my account today. There's nothing anybody's going to tell me that I'm going to listen to. So he was obviously very pissed off. So all of us became concerned. And then the operation manager walked out and asked the man what happened. He said they didn't send me a message on my birthday. So we were like, whoa. So what she did at that point was she just excused everybody in the bank and said, please just give me a moment, and spoke to her staff and said, please, can you people do me a favor? Everybody bring out your phone. And everybody brought out their phone. I included, I brought out my phone. And he said, can you just call your number? And the man was calling the number. People were dialing the number. And he said, please type a birthday text message and send to and say, everybody type a birthday text message and send to the man. So people typed the text messages and they sent. In a few seconds, the man's phone was just beeping and everybody just burst into laugh.
Wow.
We were all laughing, including the man. And then the lady asked him, will you still close your account? And he said, no. right? And then he said, okay, please, and spoke to the customer care, said, please include his number on the database so he gets birthday message. For me, it sounded crazy because I didn't even know men celebrate birthdays, by the way. But the fun part of it is that the financial institution has found a way to reduce decision making all the way from the top echelon. So they are not making it vertical anymore. They are now making it a bit horizontal. So the guys at the front line are also making the decision. So imagine something that happened within that split time that they had to go back to go and talk to probably, what do you call it, the top guys and all that. Imagine what could have happened. That guy would have succeeded in getting everybody in the business there angry because everybody was already obviously angry at the time.
Yes.
So the reverse engineering will work in the sense that somebody who already has the means, like the millennials who already know these technologies, just because they are just new entrants into the business, and then we have this older generation that are already in the business that probably do not know much about them. They also need to rely on the younger generation to be able to teach them. I mean, that's what I would do. The first thing I would do is, in my own organization, basically, let me give an instance. In my own organization, the way we structured it is such a way that if you notice in my title, it is managing partner. So everybody in the organization is a partner. We give everybody the same structure, work as a partner, own the business. So all I do is managing partners. So it's as simple as that. So we understand that hybrid leadership is one of the things that are going to actually bring these businesses to pass. So every single person in the business becomes viable. So reverse engineering, reverse mentoring, and of course, the usual on-the-job mentoring are also going to be very valuable for every entrepreneurship and even the workspace itself.
Wow, amazing. Thank you so much, Felix. Modou, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I'm just going to add on, I mean, what Felix said. I think one of the traits that we're looking at the moment is those that are actually enhancing the psychological adjustment at the moment. Because a lot of the new innovations that have come is actually at the stalemate right now. And, you know, the adjustment is actually requiring also a psychological trend because we are not only dealing with, an epidemic, but we're also dealing with a whole lot of mental issues in workplace.
Okay.
So it has caused a lot of CEOs to go back to the drawing board and actually look at now, instead of actually, how do we streamline some of the work process that have actually been there for a long? How do we make this flexible for entrepreneurs? How do we make this flexible for the people that are working with us? And, as Felix said, now everybody is a stakeholder. Before you would see the decisions coming from up, down, but now everybody has to own the process of ensuring that the firm survive. And I feel like this is more or less like the direction of where work is about. You need to build your team. You need to have the persuasion skills, the people focus, the originality of also what you want to achieve. So, I mean, when you look at it across Africa, there has been a challenge. I mean, Africa is still, picking up. Felix actually mentioned it earlier in terms of Silicon Valley, we are actually behind. Even though a lot of investment, we'll take an instance of Nigeria, which has actually got up to millions of dollar investment across Africa from investors, which is amazing because, I mean, this has been a challenge. How do we get people from the outside to actually invest on, businesses that are actually in Africa? Yeah, so I think Africa has been looking at the trends. We've been also studying. The only thing is we were more focused, for those that have been building an ecosystem, we were more focused on closing the gap, ensuring that whatever is doable outside is actually also doable in Africa. But then when you look at the epidemic situation, it has also caused us that we were not actually that far off. It was just an issue of mentality of African startups.
Yeah.
So look beyond the future, and it's about how forecast. If you don't have already before, you need to get it now because more African entrepreneurs. You can see Zoom knowing pretty much that if they don't upgrade, because cybersecurity is hitting, the platform that we're using right now is being hacked. meaning so some businesses are emerging because there are opportunities, and some businesses are failing because they were not prepared. So cybersecurity is a business right now because they know that there are a lot of people doing online transactions.
Okay.
So I mean, if I am a cybersecurity personnel, is the best option in the COVID-19. So meaning that the businesses are a bit more diverse in their houses using internet connection to actually speak to their colleagues, to actually meet clients, to do email marketing. So this is the trajectory. I think it's more of a whole community watching. There's a whole you on the way that you perform. So these are things that we need to look at. So at every stage at the moment, for every entrepreneur, you need to upgrade. You need to look at because it's not a period of I am okay. It's a period of I need to survive. The strategies that I need to have need to adapt to what's gonna come because we are uncertain. I don't even know what's gonna happen tomorrow. I don't even know whether Zoom will be available tomorrow. I don't even know, like all these things are uncertain. So it's more of about, so Zoom knows that. That's why now they're upgrading. You've heard it from Bruce at the initial stage. Before we join in that Zoom is actually up. Pretty much just cybersecurity is going to hit them. It was going to cause a massive backdrop for their, prominent because they're the one dominating right now in terms of video conferencing. We've seen Facebook upgrading as well.
Let me add a little to.
Okay.
That. Okay. Let me add a little to that. Now, if we look at the numbers, which is one of the reasons why we started out a campaign on the future of work. Personally, I focused on that particular campaign. My projection and the projection of the surveys and all of the reports we've seen so far was giving Africa a little lag. We had what was assumed to 5 years for all of this to happen. It wasn't a case of we are not aware. We were aware. We knew this was going to happen. Okay, let me give an instance. One of the lessons we saw was that we knew, based on reports and surveys, that all activities in certain African countries. Let me give a few numbers to it. Every work activity in South Africa, for instance, was susceptible to 41% of automation. And the numbers even goes higher for other countries. Ethiopia was about 44%, Nigeria 46%, and Kenya went up to 52% of every job activity whatsoever. Wow. They were all susceptible to what? Automation. So we knew that this was where it was going to go. But what we were relying on was the fact that we had a little time, we had a little window. We have 3 years, we have 5 years to go, so we can prepare and start working towards that. So most of our campaign was based on this. But what has happened is COVID-19 has just found a way of dropping it on our lap, like, guys, this is here and now. So the good thing about Africa is that we are enjoying one of the advantages in a demography distribution. Africa has one of the youngest demography so far. It's estimated by 2030 that Africa should have the African workforce, the work age bracket should be about 2/3 of the entire world population. So Africa alone has about 2/3 of the world work age population. That's quite young. So it means that we have people who, if we expose them to the technology, if we work on getting the educational system to be revamped, to re-strategize and bring a way of both the entrepreneurs themselves, probably investing in on-the-job training, because most of this demography we are talking about, the Gen Z and the millennials, which falls within this age, are people who are not mainly concerned about remunerations and fast paychecks as a motivation for job. They are more concerned about how their job and their life fits. Look at the adoption in a gig economy, for instance. Even some people run the gig economy as if it is, you ask them, I say, I'm an entrepreneur. So how are you an entrepreneur? I work on the gig economy. And most of them I have actually taught are people who deliver services, skilled services on Upwork, Fiverr, and Freelancer, and many others. So generally, our work has been more of a B2B and a little B2B and more of B2C. So entrepreneurs in Africa can leverage this. And just like Modou mentioned, the investment, let me give you a figure. The investment into Nigeria alone, the IT sector of Nigeria alone in quarter three of 2018 was approximately 33 million US dollars. That's approximately 13 billion naira in just quarter three. And that is even half of what came in quarter two of the same year, and even far less than what came in quarter one. So it was estimated that over 160 million US dollars came into Nigeria's IT sector alone. And that sector, the most of the investment went to financial sector. So if you look at these figures, you know that one, Africa has what it takes to survive. But just like Modou will always say, the thing is, how do we adapt this technology to huge human resources? How do we reskill them? How do we retrain them? How do we adapt them to what we currently unprecedented?
Yes, thank you very much.
So I'm just gonna add before you go, Daniel. I don't know. Can you hear me?
Yes,
so basically, we have seen the emergence of two terms: essential workers and non-essential workers. So we're talking about emerging digital trends in workplace. I think this has been a perfect time for us to choose our careers wisely on what exactly we're going to get ourselves involved in. I think when you look at product market fit is actually playing right now. Some of the jobs that we didn't
Okay.
think that they're going to dominate right now are the ones that you actually. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, but there was a network glitch a while ago. So please repeat yourself.
So basically what I'm trying to say is entrepreneurs that are solving
All right, the connectivity seems to be bad at the end, Modou. Felix, are you there?
now, can you hear me?
Okay, all right. Can you speak again, please? Thank you.
Yeah, so what I was saying was, now we have seen, the network is bad.
All right.
Can you hear me?
Again.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Modou.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is, now it's the time for African startups to work on products that are actually solving problems.
Wow.
Now we have seen cleaners. We have seen cleaners, those that were really on the lower value chain of organizations, being more relevant right now. Even the managers are not essential. So whatever job that whatever skill that you have, whether it's a soft skill or hard skill, it should be related to something that's disruptive. So if I'm innovating right now, or I'm an entrepreneur right now, wherever I might find myself in Africa, and those that are actually reinventing the wheel are the ones that are looking at pandemic is here. Now we need solutions. Why are we having all call for proposals across Africa? Why are startups being challenged to bring their solution? That is telling you that entrepreneurs have shifted from the model of just joining business, but the model of actually having product market fit and solving problems in Africa. And I feel like this is the direction that all startups in Africa need to look at if you want to survive, the current tragedy that we're actually in right now.
Exactly. I totally agree with you on that. Felix, okay, it's a good thing that you mentioned the demographic advantage of Africa. But Modou, may I come to you? Yes, Africa has witnessed an increase in investment inflow into the continent. But the question now is, okay, how is the impact being felt, and how can entrepreneurs position themselves to achieve success when it comes to startup volume and the rest of starting up a business in Africa? Are you there?
So the key thing that I would like is, can you hear me? Access to finance. Oh, the network is bad.
Okay, I can hear you. Please go ahead.
Yes, so access to finance has been one of the major challenges for African startups.
Okay.
And the reason why we have access to finance issues is because we didn't have a lot of scalability for most of the African startups. In fact, most of them were actually going off after the trajectory of 2 years because scalability was a problem. But guess what? Even before COVID-19 came, the amount of investment that came and Nigerian startups dominating, we have seen the other parts of Africa, a bit concerned why was investment actually coming to West Africa. I think West African startups were a bit more, because, well, we were more, you have a lot of Anglophonic countries that were pretty much connected to Silicon Valley. And it was more of about how we were ready to position ourselves to communicate with the external market. So this has been the major challenge. But I think now, if you look at most of the engineers that are working in Microsoft and these big giants, these are actually African engineers. They are not Europeans right now. They are not Europeans. These are African engineers. So meaning that the innovation is coming from here. The only thing is, how do we stabilize the skills and resources that we have to take opportunities in the emerging workplace opportunities that are coming. So it's more of about, it's not only for startups, but it's also more of about governments. We've seen Paul Kagame mentioning it in one of his statements recently, that it's more of about governments structuring their policies towards ensuring that the skills that they actually introducing is what we're looking at in the future of Africa.
Okay.
So this is the trajectory right now. And I feel most of the African startups, it's time for them to now be ambitious, not to actually look within their vicinities, but to know that you can actually go global. I think it's time for us to start taking our businesses global. Going for pitching competitions.
All right.
Testing our product market.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Modou. Felix, Modou brought in an amazing tangent about the government involvement in this. Based on your perspective, what do you have to say in that line as to creating the enabling environment for individuals and entrepreneurs to be able to access resources that they need? Felix.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
All right. So the Italian environment, there's a mistake we usually make around, and I have been trying to change that paradigm. I've been trying to talk to business people, especially for those who attend my business class. One of the things I tell them, I say, we always wait for government to give us an enabling policy and enabling ground. Even some people even go as far as waiting for government to fund them. Now, one of the things I teach in my business classes, I ask a question. I said, okay, I take two scenarios. We have a guy. I come to you and I tell you, I have a business idea, and this business idea is going to generate 20 million naira. So what I need is 5 million naira from you. I will do the business and I will give you 10 million in 2 months. That's one guy. Then the second guy comes to you and said, I have a product I have already tested. Okay, I bootstrap my business. I've been able to test the product. It's 5 people have bought it, and all the 5 people said they know their friends will buy it. And they have a connection to their friends that have up to 2,000 people. So the potential is there. And I come to you and said, okay, If I sell the 2,000 at 5,000, I'm going to make 2 million. So I need 1.5 million to scale, and I need 1.5 million loan from you to scale the business. So what I'm going to do is, in the next 6 months, as my market grows, I'm going to pay you 500,000 per month for the next 6 months. And when you look at it, 500 per month for the next 6 months is about 3 million, right? So the question now is, who would you fund? I don't get it. Right. And most times I get the feedback. People tell me, okay, I will fund you if you show me a product you've already be able to put, and then show me people who are willing to pay for the product. So it means that however we want to look at it, for us to be able to assess the funding, just like Modou mentioned, is that the West African part, or rather, some of the people who got the funding more were people who possibly bootstrapped or found a way around getting their product to the market and established a clear line of traction. They've been able to demonstrate it. Look at every single business that got funding in Nigeria. Like the report I was talking about, every single business, every one of them have demonstrated a clear line of traction. Whether it be in finance or any other, they have all demonstrated a clear line of traction. They have shown that they have a business, a market that, and a business product that people are already looking for and paying for. So people want to fund this kind of business. You and I can agree to that. So now let's come to policies that could work. Governments could make policies. Now, what happens to you and I? When we take these policies, we try to create something. That is why we need more than ever the private-public partnership to be functional. So government should focus on more of getting the private-public partnership to be functional, much more than just giving the policies and giving the direction. So one of the problems we have, let me take my country for instance, is that most times we have people in government trying to not just only give out the policies, they also try to create the funding. It shouldn't be so. Now, let me come back to the work part of it. You realize that most of the business people are the ones who will tell you, like the businesses, the entrepreneurs, the businesses are the ones to tell you, okay, this is exactly what I need as a skill. This is the kind of skill we need to scale our business. Most government and academic institutions don't even know that these skills have evolved. So you as a business, that's why you see most businesses are now beginning to create this, retooling, reskilling, and on-the-job training for the people. So I think there needs to be a synergy between the public enterprises and the government coming together to create that policy and drive it as a complete sector. That's what I think.
Thank you very much, Felix. Amazing. Modou, just like a way of wrapping up, do you have anything to add to that, please? Would like to hear your final thoughts, Modou. You are muted.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
I'm just gonna this is a very exciting time, and I think Africa is definitely the future in terms of Silicon Valley, and in also getting a lot of traction. I think if you look at the demographic also in terms of mobile penetration in Africa, I think it's pretty much now getting closer to the other giants. So which is telling you about the ambitiousness and the connection that we have with technology. I think now it's more of about how do we enhance and ensure that some of the new emerging technologies that are actually around is compatible and we know how to run it. I think it's more of about that. Now, the things that we used to look out for in the West should be done pretty much by Africans. I mean, we have engineers that actually building customized APIs for payment gateway. You look at most of the payment systems now in Africa is done by young Africans. Yes. That's pretty much amazing. Now you can connect with PayPal using a customized API. How fascinating could that be, to come from Africa? So, and all of these things are emerging technologies that are actually being rolled out across the world, but Africa has adopted. When you look at, it's hard. Payment system is one of the new emerging technologies. But if you look at the dominance with PayPal, with Slack, with all these mediums, we were not connecting. It's even hard to receive a payment when you have an e-commerce business.
Yes.
So, all of these businesses are trends, but and we've seen mobile money, the M-Pesa model, in Kenya, which is quite fascinating. Why do a moment? Now, instead of going to the bank, you want to sit there in your house and make transactions. Certain countries in Africa, the people that have access to finance very technologies. For those who were on the elementary traditional startup, it's time for them to do it.
Your mic is low, Modou. I don't know if you can hear me. Your mic is low.
So, yeah, what I was saying is, if there's any traditional startup in Africa, we've seen that in Gambia here, where most of them were not pretty much techie, but now they are forced to adapt. That's how disruption happens. You can see, small startup disrupting big giants, because your product market fit is actually amazing. So I think it's more about being self-conscious about adapting to the new realities. If you are a startup, if you're an entrepreneur, it's time for you to be self-conscious. Don't always feel very naive that, oh no, my business is small, I need to start, I need to continue reaching my customers through using a transportation. Try using e-commerce platforms to sell, because people don't have time. Corona, nobody goes out in it. Nobody even leaves their houses. There's a whole lot of lockdown. So you might want to go online and say, oh,
Modou, your network is breaking out.
Just start to edit it.
All right, thank you, Modou. At the latter part, the network was connectivity was poor, but thank you very much. And I want to appreciate you for coming on the call with us today, Modou. Felix, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for making the time to be with us on the call today. And thank you everyone for joining us. From us here at Asaba, it is goodbye. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, thank you. Thank you.
It was a great pleasure. It was a great pleasure. Thank you very much for everyone.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure. And see